Hey, welcome back to maybe this one's an excruciating in the chute. Calen is the guy on the other side. I'm this guy, and he's going to throw something at me that I may or may not know or have to improvise. What do you got, Calen?
All right. Most people will go to a horse purchasing sale, whether it's, let's say it's through the ring, you buy it for probably $100. You don't know what its past has been or anything like that.
Or
Or
more.
you or more. Or you could go to a, let's say, reputable dealer or trainer. You know what their product is like and you're willing to pay X amount of dollars, whatever it may be. What are some considerations people might have before purchasing a horse? And we'll do this twofold. What are the considerations for first timers, and what are maybe some considerations for some veteran owners? They already have horses, they have the stuff, they know what they're getting into. What are the considerations for the newbies and for the people that know what they're doing, essentially?
Well, yeah, no matter what, I mean, you got to match the horse to the person, right? What are they going to use it
Yeah.
for? That's the big one. Are they a novice? Is this something that they've always wanted to do? Is it somebody who is really a pretty skilled rider, but not a trainer necessarily, and wants something? Is this something that is a performance horse, say that they're wanting to win some money on? Is it a barrel racing horse? Is it a header horse in rodeo world, and some high dollar horses there for winning some a lot of money, which I mean, there's all kinds of avenues. And I kind of equate this to a car lot. How many different models of cars are there, and what are their uses? That's really what it is.
That's
I
a good
mean,
question.
yeah, and some of those are used car lots. You got to be careful, buyer beware.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and are
what is
you
that?
a car guy or not too? There's that
That's
aspect
right.
too.
Have you ever had this model? Oh,
Yeah.
this looks good, so I want to try this one, and this is way too much car for me. I'm gonna roll this thing. I'm gonna kill myself in it. Um, so there's all those considerations of what is the use going to be, and is it going to be matched for what I need it to be at the level of skill that I have. Those are your major ones, and once you kind of narrow that down, or you've got that, and obviously there's some people that they're just new into horses, they're wanting to pleasure ride, and they will never be on a cutting horse. So that eliminates a whole bunch of model cars on this side that you don't need. Or they've got all kinds of money to spend, and there's no object to what they want to get. And essentially sometimes they can buy the best horse they can buy to buy a title. That happens. That's also a reality. So you've got all of these different types of usage, wants and desires, skill level, and then it comes down to the horse. um how used is this horse? How many owners has it had? Has it only been driven to church on Sundays by a little old lady? I mean, so um, some horses are used up at a young age. Depends on how they've been raised, trained. Are there some issues genetically? So the health of the horse is huge. Uh, it's always a good idea. I don't care who you are. It's always a good idea to get an overall vet check, a health check on it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to uncover something that is lurking that isn't necessarily able to see at that moment, but you might see some trends, you might see some issues, you might see something that is going to alarm you to, oh, you know what, this could cost me some money, or I've only got so many years left in this horse. Feet are a big issue. Feet, tendons, coffin bones, naviculars. All of those kinds of things are, depending on what the prior use was, can be a factor. If you're buying a brand new horse, something that's only been ridden or trained by a couple of people, for instance, that's kind of what we do. And we're a little biased that way that, we raise and train our own. We'll train for outside people too, for their horses. But, we don't turn horses for profit, where we're buying as a broker, or we're trading cars and selling a used one to somebody. We don't do that. We're raising our own, putting our training on them, and then selling them as is. So you get somebody who exactly what's been done with them. We tell people what they can do, what they can't do, or have not done, or could do. you know, kind of a full disclosure there, and then you let them decide what they want to do with that horse from that point forward. And always a good idea to buy from reputable people. There are people that have not, uh, let's say, they earned their reputation. And I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy that was buying horses through the ring. He'd take them home for 30 days, and he'd put just an incredible rein on them. But that's all he did. You could spin him into corkscrew him into the ground, but you get him outside that arena, and these horses were, you know, they were wound pretty tight, and he was kind of frying their brains a little bit. Too much pressure. People were buying these horses, and then they were, you know, not happy because they would blow up, not do what they needed to do or what they were designed to do for their purpose. Of course, again, that's, you know, caveat emptor, let the buyer
Mhm.
beware. And he got kind of a reputation for doing that. Pretty soon people weren't buying his horses through the ring. So then he was getting other people to ride his horses for him through the ring, but he wasn't really all that smart of a guy, and he had his initials on a saddle blanket. And yeah, you can see that. And it was like he wasn't fooling anybody for very long. And so, you know, he went by the wayside after a short time. But there's all kinds of ways to buy. Check out the health of that horse, what their previous owners did, how much use they got. Were they overused? Were they used too hard? Sometimes, and I hate to say it, but team ropers, they boy, they stress those horses' legs a lot. Especially if they're too young a horse. Those growth plates haven't closed. They've overused them while they're still growing, and you know, roping a lot of steers and pulling them around and overdoing it, you're taking some life off of that horse potentially. So, um, you know, there's always that where somebody's getting rid of a horse before they break down on them, and AAA can't always help you out with that
Oh
horse.
yeah. With the that makes sense with the horses, and then with, like you're saying, kind of like dealers, brokers, trainers, whatever it may be. But another question would be, what about for the tack or any of the equipment that would go with it, especially looking more towards like the newbies, like I was saying, people haven't really been in the industry or the lifestyle before, and they're just now entering it. What are some considerations for purchasing horses in terms of that?
Yeah, that's always a big one, because people will spend money on a horse to get the horse, and then try to cheap out sometimes on the tack, particularly a saddle. And you know, they'll just buy any old saddle, and I've seen a lot of behavioral issues with horses because of poor saddle fit. I mean,
Mm,
literally horses start bucking after a while because the saddle is just hurting them.
pinching them, yeah.
And yeah, pinching them, or you got a twisted tree, or you know, God knows what all issues. The design of the saddle, there's all kinds of things that can cause some issues there. So um, people will buy, especially new people, tend to buy a saddle that fits them and doesn't necessarily take the horse into consideration. So I would rather have that horse comfortable and me not as comfortable, but I want that horse comfortable. Ideally, you're both comfortable. So tack is a big one like that, especially saddles. The other part is what kind of bits in their mouth. I have a lot of people that, you know, come to us, and it's surprising. They do their homework. I think they've gotten better over the years and more information. There's a lot of good information that's come out of having an internet, videos, that kind of stuff, where people, they may get trained, or at least learn the questions that they should ask, which is always good. And almost everybody that comes to us to purchase a horse will ask what kind of bit we use. That's a
Hmm.
big one, and I think it's a good question. Of course, you know, I can spend a half a day at a clinic just talking about bits and why not, and I do that. I spend the time with them, but uh, a bit doesn't necessarily mean the horse is going to be good. I mean, you can cause some problems if you got poor hands. So it's all about the education of it too. But tack is usually something that people will spend a little bit more money, more appropriate money for what they need for a head stall, but they'll kind of skimp on that saddle sometimes, and that can bite them. So, um, you know, nice and new and shiny and expensive on a saddle pad isn't necessarily the right thing to put on them either. So, um, you can try to fix things with a bit, fix things with a saddle blanket, when really go to the source get what you really need for that saddle. If a good fit on it, you don't have to have a super expensive pad. You can get by with something that's pretty thin and pretty cheap as long as a good saddle fit is there. And then with that bit, it's appropriate to put what they've been using, what works for them, but have good hands. You know, you're bringing those hands to it. You're not buying those hands. They're attached to your arms, and that arm is attached to the shoulder bone and connected to the brain bone. And if you got a bad brain throwing those hands around, you're causing yourself some problems.
If you were to buy just a basic loadout, knowing what you know, but just entering the market now, what would be, let's say, saddle, headstall, and horse, and maybe a type of trainer that you would go toward?
You mean if I'd never done that before and I wanted to be like have
Yeah.
a pleasure horse?
Let's assume you know everything you know right now, but you've never been in the industry and you're just now entering.
Oh, geez, I don't. Get yourself just a nice, calm, older horse, got some life left in it. Breed specific. That's all.
Yeah.
Depends on what you like, but
Preference.
yeah. But you'd have money into a horse. We got a little cousin that's just gotten into horses in the last couple of years and doing a phenomenal job, doing a really good job on a hunter jumper stuff. And that's not anything that I'm no hunter jumper.
Yeah.
I can appreciate it, but that's not anything we've done unless it's been out of necessity, and it sure hasn't been scored. But and they're looking for a horse, and so send some pictures, and it's like, man, this is nice, but you don't know what that horse is.
Yeah.
Horse prices right now, and on today's timeline, we're at the end of 2022. Horse prices are unbelievably high, just really surprisingly high. And so, you can wrap up $10,000 into a decent, as safe as you're going to get horse, and then a couple, $1,500, $2,000 for a good saddle. Decent saddle is a lot of money. You could probably find something that somebody's getting rid of, and taking your time and finding something that fits for under $1,000, and a headstall bit, a couple hundred. You can be set up there pretty good for under 10 grand, if you're not going to haul it around anywhere, and then you need that horse trailer and the pickup to pull it. And we've had that story, I've told you about that before. But you can wrap up a lot of money into them. It's about being smart. Don't buy shiny, buy utility.
Yeah.
And use it accordingly.
All right. Those are some considerations for horse purchasing if you are a newbie or an OG. And with that, we'll take that conversation and put out to pasture.